So the aim of risk management. Well, I think the first thing is if we define what risk management or what risk is. So if we look in the dictionary, risk is all negative. Possibility of loss, injury, other adverse or welcome circumstance, a chance or situation involving such a possibility. If we look into PMI, they've got a rather wordy definition, but this wordy definition introduces the idea of positive and negative effects, which I think we these days categorize as threats and opportunities. So we break risk into upside and downside. In the ISO, the definition for risk, I recognise these words from Dr. David Hilson, who manages to simplify everything as far as it needs to be simplified, very clear speaker. The effect of uncertainty on objectives. The key things we pick out of this is there has to be an element of uncertainty, things we don't know, and it has to affect our objectives. So we can have uncertainties that don't affect our projects, don't affect our programs at all. They might be risks to somebody, but they're not the risks we're interested in. We're interested in the risks that affect our objectives on our delivery. So, what are we trying to do with risk management? I think there are three things we're trying to get out of risk management. The first thing is to manage the future. And this is about stopping bad things from happening and encouraging good things to happen. And we do this through identifying the risk and developing the responses. And that'll be the proactive responses. What are we going to do to stop the threats from happening or to try and make the opportunities happen? And what are our fallbacks when risks do land? I think the next thing we're trying to get out of risk management is predicting the future. A bit more than a crystal ball here, but really this is where we're going with the assessments and the modelling, the quantitative risk analysis, and I'll talk about that in a little while. Statistical modelling, really giving an idea of the range of possible end dates for the project, or the range of possible delivery dates for milestones, the range of possible costs and how those two work together. So we give our stakeholders a very clear message that at the beginning of the project, where we've got a lot of uncertainty, a lot of assumptions being made, a lot of things still to be resolved, we can't really give them a single date for the finish and a single cost for delivering a project or a program. And I think this is an important lesson. It's something a lot of stakeholders need to learn. Life isn't certain. Life's just not like that. And I'll give a few examples later on to illustrate that and how we can model it. And the final thing I think we're trying to get out is to enhance the maturity of our organisations. And I'll talk a bit about pulling together a knowledge repository so that we deliver future projects based around the knowledge and the understanding, the learning from previous projects, and how can we formalize and structure how we get that information and use it in the future. And I don't know, I can't remember whether CMMI is still a thing. It used to be a big thing when I was, so thank you, Lindsay. It used to be a big thing when I worked for EDS many years ago, the whole CMMI picture. And it was about standardizing the processes and then moving forward to improve the processes, to learn from the past, and to improve the way you deliver. So we take the first bit of this. This is managing the future, the risks and the responses, the sort of stuff we generally fill in risk registers with when we do our Excel spreadsheets. So there's a structure around pulling a risk statement together. Now, typically we think about something that may happen. Might be something good that's going to happen, but generally it's a threat that's going to land. Something's going to be late, something won't work, there's a big hole in the ground where I want to put off some things, whatever it happens to be. So this is our risk event. And we can work either way with this, because we can say, well, it's got a series of causes. So we can either start off with a list of things we don't know and a list of assumptions we make and how they might affect our delivery. Or we can start off with, these are the things we think might go wrong, why might they go wrong, so we can go sort of right to left on this picture. And when we understand that with our risk event, we can think, well, okay, how's this going to affect our objectives? How are we going to deviate from our delivery plan, whether it be a program plan or a project plan? If it's an opportunity, is something going to be delivered early? That means we can then bring other dependent activities forwards. Does it mean something's, have we got a risk that something's going to be late, in which case our whole plan will move to the right? So what are the impacts? So we need to think of the risk statement in these three parts. And there are some very good reasons for doing this, because it helps with our responding to it. Another type of risk over and above the risk event. So this is specific things happening. We've also got our uncertainty and estimating. So when we put together a piece of work and we say this task is going to take 10 days to do, and it's going to cost however many pounds, dollars, yen, whatever to do, we're all engineers, or a lot of us are engineers and scientists by background. So there might be a plus minus, a tolerance around those estimates we're coming up with. So let's try and understand that. So we have our tolerance around duration and our tolerance around cost, typically. And the uncertainties are driven by, well, actually, do we actually know how much work there is to be done? Do we know the productivity of the people who are going to do it? And that might include their availability. Do we know how long the work is going to take? So there may be external factors that mean that the job will take longer than we thought, over and above the productivity of the teams involved. And of course, when you're planning projects out, what's the uncertainty around the cost? Because you may be making a guess around what a contractor will charge you to do a piece of work based on previous experience. But until you've engaged the contractor and got their quote, you really won't know that sum at all. So there's a lot of uncertainties there that we can look at and we can model. And how do we see those? Well, in terms of delivery, it's ultimately at the end of our project, how long did the project take? How much did the project cost to deliver? And on the way through the project, as good program controls, project controls people will be doing cost performance index, schedule performance index to see how we're performing against the plan. So we'll be able to see the effect of these uncertainties that drive the schedule and cost performance indices. So it is all tied up.